Well, you know the secret that I was going to begin by confessing, which is that I was once a Reform rabbi. At the time, I was proud to be a Reform rabbi because the Reform philosophy of Judaism reflected who I was as a Jew, as a human being. When I was a student at the Hebrew Union College in a class in the philosophy of Reform Judaism, a student asked the professor the following question, or series of questions. According to the founders of the Reform movement and formalized in the Pittsburgh Platform of 1885, reason is the guiding principle of Reform Judaism. On this basis, we have abandoned the halakha. We have made substantial changes in the liturgy. Men and women sit together. We have, during the past 75 years, made so many changes with respect to rabbinic Judaism that many may wonder whether we are still a Judaism at all. My question, Professor, is, are there no limits? Is there not a boundary that even Reform Judaism says we may not cross without leaving the fold? If reason is our ultimate standard, and reason tells me there is no God, am I still an authentic Jew? Am I a rabbi? The answer came after a thoughtful pause and an obvious inner struggle. And the answer was in these words, or a paraphrase thereof. This was 40-some years ago. I share your apparent concern that there is no doctrine or creed or theological statement that defines our movement. It allows ignorance and laziness to masquerade as Judaism. But it is also the glory of our movement that we do in fact believe in something. We believe in intellectual freedom. We believe in autonomy. We believe in the validity of the rational pursuit of truth. In the words of Brandeis, even unto its innermost parts. The issue, he said, is not whether or not we believe in God. The issue is, having rejected the concept of literal divine revelation, who, other than the individual person, has the right to decide what he or she may or should believe on any question? Our job as rabbis, he said, is not to set limits for our congregants, but to inspire them and teach them so that they will be competent to handle their freedom responsibly. That was a dramatic experience for me because it confirmed what I already had learned through my study of the texts and debates that led to the founding of Reform Judaism and that set forth its distinctive character. Although I was raised within an Orthodox household in a homogeneous Orthodox neighborhood, not the leafy suburbs of Denver, by the way, but the west side of Denver where there were no leaves. I had not heard of Reform Judaism until I was 16 years old. When I heard of Temple Emmanuel, I was told that it's where the Goyim go. And I heard about a famous club called the Friedman Club, which was named after Herbert Friedman, who was at that time the senior rabbi at Temple Emmanuel. And the Friedman Club was notoriously Goyish. These were kids teenagers who worshiped, I shouldn't say God, but Herbert Friedman, who went on, by the way, to become the chairman of the United Jewish Appeal, and I believe is still alive and functioning well. Dynamic, unusual person. In any case, I had not known anything other than Orthodox Judaism until my late teens, when I began to drift away from my roots. And by the time I graduated from college, I found that Reform Judaism was the only expression of Judaism that was consistent with my own dignity as a thinking being. At that time, there was no incompatibility between Reform Judaism and what I then called rational Judaism, and Rabbi Wein called Humanistic Judaism. I had not yet met Rabbi Wein, and I had not yet, therefore, converted to Humanistic Judaism. But rational or Humanistic Judaism was, I thought, an option within Reform Judaism. So much so that all of the rabbis who have explicitly identified themselves as humanistic rabbis are, to this day, as far as I know, graduates of the Hebrew Union College. I say to this day, bearing in mind that as of this evening, the statement will require revision. I believed, though, at that time, that the roots of Reform Judaism, as represented, for example, in the Pittsburgh Platform, contained an incipient humanism, and that eventually humanistic branches would emerge. I had learned, after all, that Reform Judaism viewed Judaism as an evolutionary process, and inasmuch as the words of the Pittsburgh Platform state, we recognize in Judaism a progressive religion, ever striving to be in accord with the postulates of reason. I had to look up the word postulates. It's the first time I think I'd ever heard it, maybe the last. Ever striving to be in accord with the postulates of reason, I believe that it was only a matter of time, and perhaps not a great deal of time, before the natural course of evolution would carry reform to its logical destination, humanism. I had no reason to anticipate that reform would turn its back on its own philosophy and cut off its roots, or cut itself off from its own roots. Alas, over the past several decades, that is exactly what has happened. Reform Judaism now is a Judaism